got my glasses off. Now I can't see a thing.
I want to talk about the film's relationship with time. From 1985 to 1955, it is so period specific. But at the same time, this is a film that is enjoyed by generations. I'm curious what you think it is that attributes to the film's timelessness.
Well, I think it is really interesting because when we made it, it was nostalgic about the 50s. Now it's nostalgic about the 50s and the 80s. And what's really interesting about the movie, I think, there's several themes that are really powerful. And different ages can get different things, but the overreaching theme, as far as I feel, is that if you have the courage to stand up at a certain moment in your life, you have the power to change your future and your family's future. If you do the right thing, if you have courage. And I think that's really a powerful notion and true. And I think also the feeling that your parents are people too, is really, I mean, you know, This Is Us kind of does the same kind of weird thing all the time with going back and forward in time and showing you, you know, how time affects things. And I also, there's so many levels. There's like the crazy cool machines, and there's Michael Fox doing spit takes, and there's, you know, a sexy mom, and, you know, there's a crazy professor and an awesome car. So there's so many things on so many levels, but I think there's a really deep message that is resonant, and it makes it really powerful thing for parents to share with their children. Sure. And so like my mother-in-law, who's 90, she's watched the movie with her daughter, her daughter's daughter, and her daughter's daughter. So 4 generations of women can watch the movie and get something different out of it, but yet enjoy it. What more can you ask for? And there's
exactly, right? Exactly. Well, I am curious about what was it like showing it to your daughters for the first time? Like, did they have kind of a Marty to Lorraine-esque reaction?
You know, everything I showed my children when they were young was traumatic for them. They were really upset that I was kissing someone other than their father.
Sure.
So it wasn't like a fun experience. They were like, Mom! Now I'm sure they appreciate it because they're much older in a different way. But it wasn't what you would expect, like, oh, Mom, you're so cool. No, that did not happen. No. Still doesn't happen.
I mean, it's never going to happen. You're never going to think your parents cool, which is a kind of, yeah, that's the whole point of Back to the Future, right?
Right.
And just as, I mean, every actor has a different relationship with their own work. I mean, when you watch Back to the Future, can you enjoy it just as a piece of entertainment, or is it more like that each scene kind of brings back memories of being on set?
Well, it's so long now, and I'm mostly a director now. So the last time, I mean, I haven't seen it that many times, but I did see it with an orchestra playing the music. You know how they do that? They take the music out and the orchestra plays. And I saw that at the Hollywood Bowl, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I really I admire so much Bob Zemeckis' work as a director. And then I was just really admiring everybody's work and just really enjoying the movie and the structure of the movie and how it's made. It's actually quite slow in the beginning, and there's no music. That was the weird thing about the orchestra. Alan Silvestri had to write new music because there's really no music for the first 30 minutes of the movie, sure. Which is interesting.
And I mean, I'm curious, just, I mean, because it's always been said that this is one of those films that, like, nobody on set knew what it was going to be. I mean, it took years and years to get made. Did you actually take anything from set as a piece of memorabilia, though?
Took one thing from Back to the Future 1 was my whole prom dress and the shoes and everything, the earrings. I took the bracelet. I have a whole thing. From the second movie, I took my prosthetic breasts.
Mom? And I also just want to ask about your experience working with Michael J. Fox, because, I mean, it's well known that when he was making this movie, he was doing it at the same time that he was filming Family Ties, and he was going back and forth between the sets, which he has said was just a completely exhausting experience. But it's not something you see at all within the movie. So I'm curious about kind of what your experience was like working with him.
He was just like super hardworking and super funny and, you know, really tired. Like, you know, he was just really burning the candle at both ends. And it was, you know, we had these kind of crazy hours to try to fit him in. And so I felt really bad for him. But it was really, everything just kind of clicked. A lot of the comedy clicked once he was there. And, you know, of course, everyone knows what a great guy he is now, and it was apparent even then. It's just the greatest.
Well, actually, I mean, that was even something I was curious about, because like he is such a nice and personable guy, but I could also imagine like between takes, you kind of just want to let him sit in his chair and relax as opposed to like keeping him engaged.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, you know, it's fun to think about making these movies when you're a fan or an audience member, like we were having a great time. It's really hard to make movies. It's exhausting. And, you know, this was no different. It takes so much concentration. And there was the knowledge that this was a big movie. Of course, Steven Spielberg, at the height of his game, was the producer. And so we knew that the stakes were huge. And so we were really concentrating on doing the best that we could and working as hard as we could. I found my script. I've got to find it again. It's probably worth some money. And I had worked so hard on every scene. There's so much writing, you know, we worked hard.
That's awesome. Well, and actually, I mean, kind of on the opposite side of that, I do also want to ask about working with Christopher Lloyd, or rather not working with Christopher Lloyd, because it is strange that the two of you are such big, notable presences in this entire trilogy, and yet the amount of screen time you share is just so minimal. I mean, just how much time did you actually get to spend with him on set? And kind of just to go back to my earlier question, like when you watch his scenes in the movie, is it kind of a separate part of the experience?
Well, yes. I mean, Chris and I not only did the 3 Back to the Futures, but we did Dennis the Menace, and we did Haunted Lighthouse, and a really great movie. I wish they'd release it, called The Right to Remain Silent. And we had one scene together. It's over 2 years of filming together. We had one scene together. And when I saw him in that weird period, like 10 years after Back to the Future, he didn't know who I was. I'm not kidding you. He did not know who I was. And I was really insulted until I realized we didn't really work together that much. We have like no lines together. We have one scene in Back to the Future in the garage, basically, and we don't really talk to each other. So I had
in fact, he's turned away from you the entire time.
Yeah, I had to let him off the hook. He's done a billion movies. Now he knows who I am because we do Comic-Cons together, and we hang out backstage and we sign things next to each other. So we definitely are really good friends now. We just did something, I think, for the Discovery Channel together. So that was a scene. We did a scene together. It was their second scene together.
That's awesome.
So it's crazy. I can't
forever
believe
tied together.
I love him as an actor. He's a genius. So for me, it's sad.
You should direct him. When one of your projects that you're directing, you should cast him.
I know. I would love to direct him. He's a genius.
For sure. And actually, I mean, just another part of Back to the Future is just its cultural permanence. And the fact that like every time travel movie that you see seemingly has some kind of reference to Back to the Future. And that even includes like Robert Zemeckis movies. Does that impact kind of the way that you watch movies, like when there is kind of references to your history?
It's funny. I remember it was really funny when Howard the Duck showed up in Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that was funny. It's really interesting to just be kind of like watching something and all of a sudden there's this reference and something and you're like, why don't you give me a job? But
well, actually, I mean, one thing that I was going to specifically ask you about is Rick and Morty, because like obviously that entire premise is based on it. Are you familiar with the show?
Yes. It's definitely part of the American vernacular for sure. And I feel super grateful to be part of that. And I'm super grateful that I had such a great part that showed so much range and was such a powerful part. That, you know, if I would have been like known for Saw or something like that, that would have been a drag. I'm really happy to be known for Back to the Future.
That's amazing. And just one last question that I will wrap up with is something I've actually been asking a lot of people in the last few months, which is about COVID-19 and the pandemic that we've all been living through these past couple of months. Just kind of, and to link it to Back to the Future, I'm curious about the future and specifically kind of the impact that we can expect COVID to have on pop culture. And I'm curious, just from your perspective as a storyteller, do you think that the next few years we will see a certain influence, be it like a bunch of pandemic stories, a bunch of quarantine stories, or even like subtle messages about like isolation and being apart from loved ones within film, television, and etc.?
You know, it's a really interesting story because a question, because, you know, remember after the AIDS epidemic, there was nothing but AIDS plays. I feel like the pandemic is perfect for theater because all these crazy things must be happening in each family. I mean, just imagine a family where everyone's trying to be good and someone's like, I don't care, I don't believe it's real, it's a hoax. He goes out, he gets sick, or he gets sick, but he's not really sick. He comes back, grandma, Aunt Betty, die. What about that guy?
Yeah.
Like, how does he feel? He said it was a hoax. He believed certain people in our government. And he came back and now his family is dead. Oh, everyone else is mad at him. He's guilty. He becomes an alcoholic. You know, whatever it is, these are great stories and they're going to make great plays. As far as I can tell I'm doing a movie right now and no one wants to deal with it. We're going to just pretend it's before this happened or like a long time after. No one, I'm always like, why don't we add that? And they're like, no, we don't want to deal with it. But it's going to be a big deal in plays. There's going to be 100 million plays written about it.
Nice.
But I think there's always unintended consequences. I think a lot of people have been writing. There's going to be a lot of interesting art created. But it's interesting because, as I said, I'm doing a movie right now called Unplugging, and we're just pretending that never happened. But it's really hard when you watch people touch now or really close to each other. You're like, you know, or if you watch people kiss, you're going to be like, you know, it's a different world, and everyone's, I don't know, it's affecting everything. Let's hope it goes away soon. But I have to say, I'm super proud. When I walk around, I'm in Oklahoma, where you wouldn't expect people to be respectful. People are so respectful. People are so great. Everyone's trying so hard. And I love America.
You just have to keep pushing that. That's what's important, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. Again, I am such a huge fan and really just appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you and your beautiful backgroround.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a fan. So yeah, this is pretty exciting for me.
Oh my God, look at that. You even have Howard the Duck up there.
Yeah. I thought I was going through my collection. I'm like, yeah, that seems like, I mean, I might even talk about Howard the Duck in this conversation, but you know, it's special. It's a very special thing. I love it.